Today I'm going to tell you a story so forbidden it could set a frontier town on fire, set against a western sky painted in copper dust and dying sunlight. It's a land where the wind carries both gunpowder and prayer, where loyalty is measured in blood, and where one wrong choice can cost everything. This is the kind of place where settlers build fences and warriors guard horizons, where two worlds collide and survival depends on which side you stand on. It all began with a single wounded man carried through a clinic door, an act of mercy small enough to seem ordinary, but powerful enough to ignite a love neither side would forgive. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Elspeth Rowe had lived her whole life in the shadow of a stethoscope and a saddlebag, known across the Arizona territory not as a woman in her own right, but as the doctor's girl. Other women were introduced by their husbands' names. She was introduced by her father's profession. While girls her age learned to stitch lace and practice hymns on out-of-tune pianos, Elspeth learned how to stitch flesh and listen to the rattle in a dying man's chest. Medicine came to her the way dust comes to the desert. Constant, unavoidable, settling into her bones until she could set a fracture or close a wound as cleanly as any physician riding the frontier. Dr. Abram Rowe had never believed the Lord handed out brains according to gender. A sharp mind is a gift, he used to say across the supper table, tapping the side of his head. And I won't see yours wasted. He taught her anatomy from heavy, leather-bound books shipped in from St. Louis. By 12, she stood on a crate to watch surgeries. By 16, she could name symptoms faster than most grown men could name their own children. Evenings were not for idle talk in the Rowe household. They were examinations, debates, lessons that left her sharp and certain. When other fathers guided their daughters toward respectable marriages, Abram Rowe trained his child to wrestle death. Then, in the summer, Elspeth turned 28. Death claimed him instead. He collapsed over his desk, a prescription half-written, ink still wet beneath his hand. She found him there, still cooling beyond her reach. She searched for a pulse she knew she would not find. She sat on the office floor for hours, his hand in hers, feeling as though something inside her had been carved out without mercy. Grief nearly swallowed her, but the sick did not stop coming. Men with shattered ribs, ranch hands with infected cuts, children burning with fever. They stood on the clinic steps expecting Dr. Rowe, and found Elspeth instead. Out here, where doctors were scarce and graves were plentiful, no one asked to see her diploma. They asked if she could dig out a bullet and keep a man breathing. That was enough. So she dried her tears, rolled up her sleeves, and became what her father had made her. Doctor in everything but name. 6 months passed before she treated her first Apache. It began with Maddo, a boy no older than 8. Yara carried him in, her face carved from fear, her silence louder than any plea. A rusted nail had pierced his foot. Infection had climbed fast, angry red veins creeping up his leg like wildfire. Elspeth cleaned the wound, drained the poison, and spoke to Yara in the rough Apache she had taught herself from her father's old books. Keep it clean. Change the cloth twice a day, she said carefully, shaping each word with effort. Word traveled beyond town lines. Before long, members of the Copper Ridge Band appeared at her door. Hesitant at first, then steadily. They learned the white woman in the weathered clinic treated them the same as the Ashfield Settlers. No less. No more. Elspeth saw nothing remarkable in that. A healer doesn't choose who lives, she once muttered while scrubbing blood from her hands. But others did not agree. Settlers whispered when she passed. Indian lover, some spat. Can't trust a woman who lays hands on savages, others warned. She ignored them. Narrow minds had never steered her life. 2 years into this uneasy balance, Takoda stepped through her clinic door. He carried Kiona, a warrior whose leg had been shattered by a cavalry round during a clash no one would officially admit had happened. Kiona's skin was gray with blood loss. The men behind them lingered near the doorway, wary, hands close to their weapons. Takoda did not hesitate. His gaze met hers, steady, measuring. He was taller than most men she'd treated, broad-shouldered, built lean and powerful. His face was cut sharp as canyon stone, dark eyes deep and alert beneath heavy lashes. Black hair fell past his shoulders, catching the lamplight. When he spoke, his English was precise. "He won't last without help." "The white doctors turned him away," he continued. "They said Apaches should be left to die. I was told you are different." Elspeth was already moving. "I'm a doctor," she replied evenly. "That's all that matters. Put him on the table." The surgery stretched 7 brutal hours. The bullet had splintered Kiona's femur, bone fragments lodged in torn flesh already hot with infection. Time pressed in on her like a tightening fist. She worked without pause, extracting shards, cutting away rot, setting what remained of the bone. Laudanum dulled the screams until it ran thin. Whiskey took its place. In halting Apache, she urged him, "Stay with me. Breathe. Don't give up." Takoda never left. The other men drifted back to their camp, but he stayed at her side, holding Kiona steady, translating when her words faltered, fetching water and bandages before she asked. There was a quiet steadiness about him, a competence that suggested he had seen blood before. She became aware of him the way one becomes aware of a storm rolling in, present, powerful, impossible to ignore. When dawn finally split the horizon, and Kiona lay sleeping, fever broken, legs saved, Elspeth sagged back into her chair. Her hands shook, her back screamed, blood stained her sleeves, strands of hair clung damp to her face. She must have looked half mad. When she lifted her eyes to Takoda, she expected pity, or worse, revulsion. Instead, she found awe. "You fought for him," he said quietly. "I've never seen anyone battle death the way you did tonight." She swallowed, suddenly unsteady for reasons that had nothing to do with exhaustion. "It's my job." "It's who you are," he corrected softly. Something shifted inside her then. Small, subtle, but undeniable. For the first time since her father died, Elspeth felt seen. "You are extraordinary," Takoda said at last, his voice rough with something close to reverence. There was no flattery in it, no empty courtesy, only awe. "I have never seen anyone fight for a man's life the way you fought for Kiona tonight. You didn't back down. You didn't quit. You went head-to-head with death, and you won." Elspeth felt heat rise beneath her exhaustion. Praise usually slid off her like rain off tin, but this struck deeper. "It's what I do," she answered quietly. "It's who I am." "Yes," Takoda replied, and the word carried weight. "It is who you are, and I won't forget it." He came back the next week to check on Kiona's recovery. Elspeth told herself that was natural. Any loyal friend would want to see how a wounded warrior fared. He returned the week after that, and she convinced herself he was simply being cautious, making sure the bone was setting true. But when he appeared a third time, then a fourth. Long after Kiona had regained strength and ridden back to the Copper Ridge Band, Elspeth could no longer pretend the visits were about medicine alone. Takoda always found a reason. He brought others who needed her attention. Cases simple enough for tribal healers, yet somehow placed before her hands instead. He delivered bundles of dried herbs, explaining their use with patient detail, as if teaching her was as important as helping her. He asked about her instruments, her methods, the science behind her decisions. His curiosity was sharp, restless, mirroring her own hunger for understanding. And he stayed, long after patience left, long after business should have ended. They spoke of more than wounds and fevers. They argued over justice and destiny. They debated whether mercy was stronger than law. They spoke of history, of land, of the thin line between survival and conquest. Takoda wanted to know everything, not only how she worked, but who she was. He asked about her childhood, about Dr. Abram Rowe's refusal to let the world shrink her mind. He asked what books shaped her thinking, what future she imagined when she dared to imagine one at all. He listened as if her answers mattered. No one had listened to her like that since her father died. Elspeth told herself it was companionship, a meeting of minds. She told herself the quickening in her chest when Takoda stepped through her door was nothing more than anticipation for lively conversation. She told herself the warmth in her stomach when he smiled was simply the pleasure of being understood. At night, when she lay awake replaying every exchange, rehearsing what she might say next time, she called it loneliness seeking distraction. She lied to herself for months and believed none of it. The truth, sharp and undeniable, was that Takoda fascinated her in ways no man ever had. It wasn't only his intelligence, though his thoughts moved fast and deep, leaping across ideas with a confidence that often forced her to keep pace. It wasn't only his presence, the strength in his shoulders, the controlled power in the way he carried himself, the quiet gravity that seemed to follow him into any room. It was something deeper. A pull she felt in her ribs, like a compass needle shifting toward a new direction. She learned him in pieces. He was a warrior, raised for battle. But he was also a voice for restraint within the Copper Ridge Band, urging negotiation when others argued for blood. He had buried Sela, his mother. He had laid Torak, his brothers, to rest. He had lost Asha in childbirth, and the child Niran had never drawn breath. He had every reason to despise the Ashfield Settlers. Instead, he sought understanding. He spoke Apache, Spanish, and English with equal ease. Reverend Silas Whitner had taught him to read before fever claimed the old missionary's life. Takoda borrowed books from Elspeth's modest shelves, returning them marked not by ink, but by thought. Questions, challenges, interpretations that revealed he had wrestled with every page. They argued until oil lamps burned low. More than once, Elspeth startled to realize hours had slipped by unnoticed. She had never known a man who treated her as an equal, not as an oddity, not as a curiosity, not as a scandal waiting to happen. In his company, she felt unguarded, real, as though parts of her long held in check were stepping forward into light. And beneath that friendship, something else stirred, something bright and dangerous. She began to notice details she once ignored. The way Takoda's eyes tracked her movements across the clinic. The way his gaze darkened when she leaned close to examine a wound he held steady. The way his voice lowered when they stood alone, words meant for her and her alone. Sometimes their hands brushed. He never pulled away too quickly. She told herself it meant nothing. Each week, pretending grew harder. Because the truth was simple and terrifying. She wanted him. Not merely his mind, not merely his companionship. She wanted him with a hunger that unsettled her, a longing that crept into her thoughts after midnight. She lay awake imagining what his hands might feel like against her skin, calloused, steady, sure. She wondered how his breath would sound close to her ear. She caught herself watching his mouth when he spoke, picturing what it might be like if those words were replaced by something softer, something meant only for her. She imagined what it would be like if his mouth ever found hers, what he would taste like. How the heat of him would feel pressed close in the dark, the weight of his body settling over hers as though he had always belonged there. The thoughts came without warning. In the middle of stitching a wound, while pouring coffee at dawn, in the quiet between heartbeats before sleep. She tried to crush them down, to call them improper, reckless, sinful. A woman in her position did not entertain such hunger. A doctor's daughter, Dr. Abram Rowe's daughter, was meant to be disciplined, composed, untouched by reckless longing. But denial only sharpened the craving. By the time autumn rolled across the desert, turning the mesquite gold and the horizon copper, Elspeth was standing on the edge of something she did not yet see. The breaking point came in late October. The heat had finally loosened its grip on the territory. Evenings carried a chill that hinted at winter. The sun bled across distant mountains in streaks of orange and violet, while Elspeth sat on the narrow porch behind her clinic, a cup of tea cooling between her palms. It had been a brutal day. June Caro had died that afternoon, born twisted inside in a way Elspeth could not mend. She had tried everything, every stitch of knowledge her father had given her, but it had not been enough. She felt hollowed out, not just tired in body, but tired in spirit, tired of fighting battles she could not win. Takoda appeared as the last light faded, moving with that quiet grace that seemed part of him. He held a book in his hand, the poetry she had lent him weeks earlier. Words that had scandalized the Ashfield Settlers, but had struck something restless inside her. "You look worn thin," he said, lowering himself into the chair beside her as if he had always belonged there. "It was a hard day," she replied. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "A baby died." He waited. "A little girl," she added. Something inside her was wrong. "I couldn't fix it. I tried everything I know. It wasn't enough. It's never enough." Takoda's eyes drifted toward the horizon, now fading into dusk. "Among my people," he said slowly, "we believe some spirits are not meant to stay long. They pass through like a shooting star, brief, bright, meant to teach something we may not understand." He glanced at her. "Nothing you did could have changed her path." "I don't believe in spirits," Elspeth answered. There was no anger in it, only fatigue. "I believe in skill, in knowledge, in the idea that if I work hard enough, if I learn enough, I can save anyone." "And yet you can't," he said gently. "No one can. Death comes whether we welcome it or not. You didn't fail June Caro. You fought for her. You gave her every chance." Her throat tightened. She blinked fast, refusing tears. But something inside her gave way. "Sometimes I wonder why I keep doing this," she admitted, voice unsteady. "Why I pour myself into battles that end the same way. My father made it look simple. He always knew what to do, always seemed certain. I'm not certain. I'm guessing half the time. I'm just hoping I don't make things worse." Takoda reached for her hand. The contact startled her. Warm, steady, undeniable. His fingers closed around hers with quiet strength. The sensation traveled through her like a ripple through still water, touching places she had tried to keep sealed. "You are not guessing," he said, low and firm. "You are the strongest person I know. You are not Dr. Abram Rowe, and you do not need to be. You are Elspeth Rowe. That is enough." She stared at their joined hands, the contrast of his skin against hers. She should pull away, restore distance, protect herself. She didn't. "Takoda," she began. He let go abruptly and stood, turning his back to her. His shoulders were tight. "I shouldn't have done that," he muttered. "I shouldn't have touched you." His voice carried strain she had never heard before. I've been fighting this for months. Tonight I let my guard slip. Fighting what? She asked, her pulse beginning to race. Silence stretched between them. Then, without turning, he answered. You. The word hung heavy. I've been fighting what I feel when I'm near you. Fighting the thoughts that won't leave me when I ride away. Fighting the wanting that grows stronger every day, until it's the first thing I feel when I wake and the last thing I carry to sleep. The world tilted. The porch beneath her felt suddenly unstable, as though everything she believed about her life had shifted beneath her feet. He kept speaking, as if the words were forcing themselves free. I tell myself I come here for reasons that make sense. To check on patients, to bring herbs, to borrow books. But those are excuses. The truth is I come because I want to see you, to hear your voice, to sit beside you and forget the rest of the world exists. He turned to face her. There was hunger in his eyes, raw and barely contained. But beneath it was something else. Fear. I call it friendship, he went on. I tell myself I admire your mind, your courage, your skill. And I do. But that's not the whole truth. His voice dropped, almost breaking. Every night I dream of you in my bed. Her breath stopped. In my dreams. Your hair falls loose over your shoulders. Your skin is warm against mine. You say my name in ways you never have in daylight. I dream of holding you, of touching you, of learning every secret your body keeps. I dream of mapping every inch of you with my hands, Takoda said, voice unsteady but resolute. Learning what makes you catch your breath, what makes you tremble, what makes you call out. His words were low, raw, pulled straight from somewhere he had kept locked away too long. I dream of your mouth on mine, of your breath tangled with mine, of your heart pounding against my chest. I dream of loving you until we're both too spent to move, until there's no line between us anymore, until I don't know where I end and you begin. He stopped, dragging in a rough breath. Elspeth realized she had forgotten how to breathe at all. Her body had gone still, every nerve tuned to him, every word striking somewhere deep and tender. I wake from those dreams aching, Takoda went on quietly, reaching for someone who isn't there. And I carry that ache all day. I see you across your clinic, and I remember what it felt like to hold you, even if only in my sleep. I have to look away, because I'm afraid you'll see it in my eyes. Afraid you'll know, afraid you'll be repulsed by how badly I want you. Heat flooded her, sharp and undeniable, spreading through her chest, down her spine, settling low and dangerous. Her fingers gripped the arms of her chair to steady herself. Her pulse hammered so loud she was sure he could hear it. Takoda stepped closer and dropped to one knee before her. He took her hands in his. The contact jolted through her like lightning striking dry ground. I know this shouldn't happen, he said, desperation edging his tone. You are a white woman. I am Apache. The Ashfield Settlers would never accept it. The Copper Ridge Band would question my loyalty. There are 100 reasons for me to walk away. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. I've told myself those reasons every day for months. But knowing doesn't quiet the hunger. Knowing doesn't stop the dreams. Knowing doesn't stop me from seeing you as the one thing I want more than peace, more than pride, more than anything I've ever fought for. He lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her skin. The kiss against her knuckles burned hotter than any brand. Something inside her, something long dormant, stirred awake. Tell me to go, he murmured. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me I've imagined it. If you say the word, I'll walk away and never speak of it again. I'll bury it so deep even I won't find it. I'll be nothing more than the man who brings you herbs and borrows your books." His eyes lifted to hers. "Tell me now, Elspeth. Before I cross a line neither of us can uncross." She looked down at him, the man who had haunted her nights just as fiercely as she had haunted his, and something inside her split open. For 28 years she had worn restraint like armor. Proper ladies did not burn with desire. Proper women endured marriage as duty, not passion. She had believed that, until now. "I can't tell you to leave," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "And I can't tell you I don't feel this, because I do. God help me, I do." Takoda's breath caught. "I feel it every time you walk through that door," she continued, the truth spilling free. "Every time our hands touch. Every time I lie in bed imagining you beside me, touching me in ways I've never known but can't stop wanting." Her fingers tightened in his. "I dream of you too, Takoda. I dream of your hands in my hair, your mouth on my skin, your body against mine in the dark. I dream of knowing you the way I know medicine, completely. I wake reaching for you just the same." She lifted one trembling hand to his face, tracing the sharp line of his cheekbone. "I've been fighting this," she whispered, "since the night you brought Kiona to me. I told myself it was improper, impossible. I've lied to myself more times than I can count. But I'm tired of lying." She leaned closer until his breath brushed her lips. "I don't care that it's impossible," she said. "I don't care about the rules or the whispers. I only care that you're here, that we both feel this. And I'm done pretending I don't." Her voice softened, but did not waver. "I want you, Takoda. Not just in dreams, not just in imagination. I want you real. I want to know what it feels like to be wanted by someone who sees me." Then she closed the distance. Her lips met his. The kiss struck like fire in dry grass, fierce, consuming, long denied. His hands came to her face, holding her as though she might disappear. He kissed her back with restrained intensity, breaking loose at last, and she felt the answer in her body before her mind could catch up. His mouth was firm, deliberate. He had imagined this. She could feel it in the certainty of him. When his tongue brushed the edge of her lips in silent question, she opened to him without hesitation. The world narrowed to breath and warmth and the taste of him. The kiss deepened. No longer just contact, but conversation. His fingers slipped into her hair, loosening pins until the heavy fall tumbled free around her shoulders. A low sound escaped him, half groan, half surrender, and it sent heat racing through her veins. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, foreheads resting together, night had fully claimed the sky. Stars burned overhead. The only light came from the clinic window behind them. Everything had changed. "Elspeth," Takoda breathed, her name falling from his lips like a vow. It carried weight, like a promise spoken before God and sky. The sound of it sent a tremor through her. "Come inside," she said. Her voice was lower now, unfamiliar even to her own ears. The voice of a woman stepping into something she had denied for years. "Stay with me tonight. Don't let this be just words. Show me the truth of what you've been dreaming." Takoda searched her face carefully, as if looking for the smallest flicker of doubt. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. "This isn't something we can take back. If we cross this line, everything changes. You're standing here, the way people see you, once they know Let them know, Elspeth cut in, surprising herself with the fire in her tone. Let them whisper. Let them judge. I've lived my whole life doing what was proper, what was safe, what kept me beyond criticism. And what has it given me? A lonely bed, an empty house, 28 years of being careful. She stepped closer. I'm done being careful. I want to live. I want to feel something real, and I want to feel it with you. She held out her hand. Takoda took it without hesitation, rising in one smooth motion. She led him through the clinic, past the table where she had once fought to save Kiona, into the narrow room at the back. It was plain. A single bed, a dresser, a small table with a lamp and a worn book beside it. But to Takoda, it was something sacred. The place where she shed her strength and allowed herself to be only Elspeth. This is where you dream of me, he murmured. She nodded. Every night, I lie there imagining you beside me, wanting you. His gaze darkened, not with doubt now, but certainty. Then let's stop imagining, he said softly. Let's find out what's real. He kissed her again, slower this time, intent. His hands moved over her through the fabric of her dress, careful, deliberate, learning her shape the way he had described. Her body responded before her thoughts could catch up, leaning into him, answering his touch without fear. He undressed her with patience, as though each layer revealed something precious. At every step he paused, giving her time to pull away if she wished. She never did. A nod, a whispered yes. That was all the invitation he needed. She discovered that night that touch could speak louder than any argument they had ever had. That closeness could undo months of restraint in a single breath. That desire, once allowed, did not weaken her. It strengthened her. She had thought herself disciplined, restrained, perhaps even incapable of such hunger. She was wrong. She had simply been waiting for the right man to awaken it. And now he was there, holding her, guiding her, meeting her as equal in every sense. The night unfolded around them, not in haste, but in shared discovery. When at last they lay tangled together, the lamp burning low and dawn just beginning to gray the edges of the window, Elspeth felt something new settle inside her. Peace, wholeness, as if some missing piece had finally found its place. What happens now? She whispered against his chest. Takoda tightened his arms around her and pressed a kiss into her hair. Now, he said, we build something worth fighting for. His voice was steady. It won't be easy. The Ashfield Settlers will talk. The Copper Ridge Band will question. There will be people who try to tear us apart. He tilted her chin so she would look at him. But I've never wanted easy. I've only ever wanted you. And I will stand against anyone who tries to take you from me. I'll stand with you, she replied. For us. For this. She studied his face, the man who had risked everything to speak his truth, who had turned his dreams into something solid beneath her hands. You used to dream of me in your bed, she said softly. Now I'm here. And I'm not leaving. Takoda smiled, slow, full of wonder. From now on, he answered, I'll dream of you beside me, and wake to find you there. That's more than I ever dared to hope for. He kissed her again, not with urgency, but with promise. They both knew the road ahead would not be gentle. There would be whispers, resistance, the steady pressure of a world unwilling to accept what they had chosen. But they would face it together. His confession had once made her knees weak. Now it made her strong. For 28 years, she had been Dr. Abram Rowe's daughter. Now she was something more. She was chosen. She was wanted. She was alive in a way she had never been before. And it began with a man who dared to speak the truth of his heart. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blaze the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice, imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process. But every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work.